President, I've known the Weber family for most of my time in Frankenmuth. The Senate got to know them when I invited them to our annual Senate Memorial Day service. Both parents worked for Star of the West Milling Company. The Weber family was a three-time Blue Star family with sons Chris in the Army, Daniel in the Army, Thomas in the Navy, all volunteering to serve our country. When I got notice of Dan's accidental death in April of 2011, I visited the home carrying a folded American flag. I was welcomed by Chris and Tom and found Heidi, Dan's mom, curled up under a crocheted blanket and a recliner in the living room. She never said a word because she could hardly breathe. She only whispered a thank you when I laid the flag next to her. The Weber family was in our community's thoughts the following month during the Memorial Day parade and at the ceremony at the high school auditorium. During the keynote address, there was a moment of silence for Dan. He was all we talked about at the Legion Hall for the hot dog reception. I remember Dan and Dan's service when we see the flags planted at our local cemetery. A year later, almost to the day, we lost Tom. Tom was still serving in the U.S. Navy, but was killed in a motorcycle accident just outside the base. This time when I visited the family, Heidi was nowhere to be found. She couldn't even leave her bedroom because of her grief. I spent some time with the oldest son, Chris, who was also shaking with grief. The Weber family was in our community's thoughts the following month during Memorial Day, at the parade, and at the ceremony at the high school auditorium. They were in our thoughts during the keynote address, and there was a moment of silence for Tom. He was all we talked about at the Legion Hall for the hot dog reception. We remember Tom and his service whenever we see flags planted at our local cemetery. This year, Mr. President, I learned that Chris Weber, the oldest, has stage 4 cancer. The one thing that has gotten Heidi through all these years was a big Mother's Day hug from her only remaining son. Because of executive orders at 2069, 2092, Heidi could not visit her son this Mother's Day for her big hug. Memorial Day is right around the corner. We will not remember Dan and Tom during the Memorial Day activities in Frankenmuth, but we will remember them. We will not have a moment of silence during the keynote address because there will not be one. There will be but we will remember. Volunteers will not participate in traditional practice of laying wreaths and putting up flags in cemeteries across the state, but we will remember. There will be no ceremony in this chamber to remember our fallen heroes, but we will remember. However, we can make these decisions all as adults, as Michiganders, by ourselves, and we are Michigan strong. We will find a way to honor our veterans on Memorial Day, one way or another.